Alright guys, after Springfield, decided we'd let everybody else get a chance on it and pick their bike of choice. So of course the Lisa road bike here is going to be the Scout. A little bit different, not as many controls, no center console. We've got a key fob here on the side, a little twist to that. Ignition. We've got fueling. We're going to find neutral on this bad boy. There's neutral. We're going to give this a little start. It should be the same as the big boys. Boom, started right up. We've got a lot of the digital controls just like the other bike. Run through those real quick. Find our RPMs. We've got peg forward controls. This is their new, I can't remember what they call it, but it's their new pearlescent red, and you can't really see it out here in this low light, but it's got a nice little flake in it. We'll give this one a little rev, let you guys listen to it. That's a nice little pop to it. This is their liquid cooled V-twin. Maybe it's a 49 degree, maybe a 53. It is rated at, I believe, 100 horsepower to the crank. You know, I really encourage you guys to get out and find a dealer that's having a demo day. You know, subscribe to their emails. I know we all hate junk mail in our box, but it's a quick delete if you don't want to look at it. But to just or look them up on Facebook or something like that. It's just really nice to get to know what your dealerships are doing. So this one's revs up a lot quicker. You don't have to twist the throttle nearly as much to get it going like these bigger bikes, but leans over pretty good. Third gear all the way up to 50 at 3,700. This bad boy will get up and roll. You know, I test rode this one last year and I was not a fan. Getting back into our standard staggered formation. Anyway, I was not a fan. I don't know if I got, you know, that bike that was built on a Friday or a Monday, trying to get out of there or don't want to be at work, but the shifting seemed to be really shoddy. And there's that suspension that we had. I just went over that bump and it almost felt like it bottomed out. I think if you got this bike, you definitely have to do a suspension upgrade. I don't know if you saw that. There was a cheeseburger box in the road. Somebody didn't want their cheeseburger. Flickability on this bike, you can see, I mean, it's really easy, even at slow speeds here, just to manipulate this thing. You never feel like you're out of control on it. So it looks like maybe we have self-canceling on the Scout too. I took that at a pretty distant lean angle and it seemed to go off, so I'd assume that's what we're working with. So we've got a set of bumps coming up around this turn, which I think is probably one of the best ways to decide how well a bike tracks and how well the suspension actually works, is to go through a turn like this with bumps in it. So we have this bump, this bump, this bump, turn, that bump. You know, Scout handles it pretty well. It's a little wobbly in the front tracking, got a bump there, boom, handled that bump well. Another one, boom. This is a pretty easily maneuverable bike. It's small, guys. If you haven't seen this one in person, if you're like, hey, you know, I really like the Scout, I'm looking at the Scout, it's a cruiser. You know, Indian's cruisers are big. They are probably the biggest cruiser in the American market at this point in time, as far as length goes. They, as far as engine displacement goes. The Scout is small. It's really a one-up bike, guys. You'd have to do some serious suspension work in the back to get some good progressives on the rear, and you could put a pillion on this, but it'd be around town, slow speed kind of bike. I just couldn't imagine riding this thing too up, but for a solo ride, I think this would be a fantastic choice. Good lean angles, good pickup, easy to find neutral on this one. Okay, vents back up. And never had to put a foot down. That's great, man. This is a really low center of gravity on this bike. Winds out, plenty of get up and go. I mean, if you're looking for a powerful, smaller cruiser, this is it, guys. If I did a review last year and I did one this year, my review this year would be a little bit better. I think they've kind of worked some of the tweaks out in there, and maybe I just got a really shitty bike. Hard to say. Third gear, 2,700 RPMs, 35 miles an hour. The brakes, there's quite a bit of play in this front brake. See just how squishy. It's not a lot of bite. There's no initial bite. It just kind of, I don't say it's squishy, but kind of is. I don't know. This one has steel braided brake lines, though. Actually, looks like it does. Maybe you could upgrade the caliper to something that bites a little better, something with a couple more pistons in it. Oh, I found neutral coming down the first, so that's interesting. Usually doesn't happen. Oh, I'm having trouble getting in first. There we go. See, it's kind of the trouble I was having last year. I think the gearbox in this one just isn't quite the same caliber in the 111. It goes into neutral super easy, but gear, fifth gear, sixth gear, 40 miles an hour, 2,100 RPMs, and you feel the slight tick, 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 tick from the engine. No serious vibrations or anything of that sort, but I mean, you could get a good roll on at this speed. Kind of, it picks up, gives a good rumble, but it's in sixth gear again. Let's go down to fifth here. Slightly better pickup than fifth, so I think Indian's done a pretty good job with their power delivery. You guys are maybe familiar. The Victory Octane is the same engine as the Indian Scout has. It has been bored out, and they're getting 108 horsepower, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just a matter of time before the aftermarket community really gets a hold of these engines and starts boring them out and putting mild or extremely high-end cams in these things to see what they're capable of doing. I really think you could probably get anywhere between 125 130 horsepower out of this particular engine. It's water cooled, man. It's going to be reliable. Would I consider this a starter bike? Probably not. I think the throttle's a little twitchy and there's a little bit too much power on tap for a first bike. I think you'd get into a lot of trouble on this thing really quick. And by a trouble, I mean like if it's a little slick out, you're coming through a turn and there's gravel and you accidentally hit that throttle a little bit too much, because it gets the power to the ground pretty quick. As far as trouble with the law, yeah, this thing's gonna get up and go. It's not gonna be breaking double digits all crazy, but I'm eager to get home and edit this video to see how well the exhaust notes are picked up on this thing, because in my opinion they sound really good. And that's just tapping it. The Scout has pretty good engine braking too. I'd say it's equivalent to the 111. Thereabouts. Found neutral coming out of second, so that's kind of nice. You can actually find neutral coming out of second. I don't know that it'd become a hindrance or something that I really like, but you can definitely find it. I scuba. Yeah, the windshield on these Scouts really isn't meant to deflect a lot of wind off your helmet, but definitely off your chest. I mean, anybody who rides a cruiser on the highway at 80 miles an hour without a windshield knows that those winds can become taxing over time. Good power delivery. I think Polaris has really got a winner here. The Victories proved to have a growing crowd over the years. There were a lot of people turning in their Harley Davidsons for Victories. And I don't know about your local Indian dealer, but I probably see more used Harleys for sale on their lot than anything else. Front suspension, we'll talk about that. I'm gonna come up to this next stop and try to get a decent handful of the front brake and see how much we dip. So here's another big grip of the front brake, and just barely goes down. I think they really changed something with that. I'd say it's on par with a decent front suspension now. Alright, jumping back on the highway here. So I'm 5'8", like I've said before, but I fill this bike out really well because of my size. That's a 4th gear roll on to 70. Coming in with a hard brake. That's 3rd gear. It pulls well. 5th gear, 6th gear. Get a good little rumble. 6th gear, again overdrive. Let's try that from 5th. About 2 seconds solid. From 4th. 4th gear, 60 to 70 roll on. 60, steady at 60. Maybe 1 3/4 seconds. It's it's just slightly faster. Not bad for a little bike. So the windshield, I do feel a little bit of wind from my collarbone up. But other than that, it's really taking the brunt of that wind off of my chest. My stature in the seating position, I'm sitting fairly straight up, but it doesn't really support a fairly straight up posture. It kind of makes you bow. Yep, sometimes people like to merge into you. People go on all day and they could be like, fuck you, you're totally in the wrong, you didn't look, but he came over in this lane, I could have backed up a little bit and gotten out of a blind spot. But it is what it is. You gotta have good defensive driving skills. You gotta put yourself where you can be seen. You gotta put yourself in a position to get out of sticky situations. Case in point, I tried to honk to let them know I was there, but I was already on my brake and getting over to the median. So, something you got to think about. They're not always going to hear that horn. You got to be ready to move. Just be smart, be safe. These are my friends. It's Natalie and Clint, husband and wife. She got off work and decided to come out and join us for a little test ride. There you go. Give you guys a little snippet of how these Indians sound. like roast this tire. I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't necessarily enjoy the riding position on this Scout. My back's starting to hurt a little bit. I feel like it's like making my back bow a little bit. Here's a good double brake stop. Okay, well, not too shabby. Of course, with ABS, I mean, I guess you really don't have to worry about just grabbing a handful of this thing and bringing it to a stop. Somebody's got their radio on. Clint's looking at me. We used to play a lot of Guitar Hero when we were younger. I can't wait for Indian to really develop the Scout engine a little bit more and maybe put it in something more sporty, like something to compete with like Ducati's Scrambler or the FZ07, something along those lines, or like the new Yamaha XSR 900, something in a little more standard frame. That's through 3 gears. Probably I don't want to say short shifted, but probably didn't rev it out completely through the rev range on those first two.